Beverly Hills Cop is one of the greatest movies ever made. Certainly one of the best coming from the 80s. It turned Eddie Murphy into a massive star and had a huge influence and impact on the body cop genre. The 80s were a wild time that had a lot of good stuff and a lot of garbage made by Hollywood, but this movie was an absolute home run. It managed to perfectly capture the atmosphere of mid-80s upper-class Los Angeles while also mixing comedy and action. This in turn paved the way for movies such as Lethal Weapon or Rush Hour, which based themselves on the foundation that Beverly Hills Cop laid. Chris Tucker's character from Rush Hour in particular is heavily based on Murphy's Axel Foley. Foley is a wisecracking, broke, impulsive, and optimistic character that manages to stay positive and work his way out of bad situations no matter what. He has a talent for talking himself into and out of almost everything, but at the same time stay relatable to the viewer. He doesn't feel like some kind of badass or hardcore super cop that will take everyone down. He's just a guy trying to solve a case and just so happens to constantly end up in crazy situations, which forces him to use his wits to save himself and his friends. He is the complete opposite of the classic action heroes that were popular in the 80s and portrayed by Stallone or Schwarzenegger. Even his physique is skinny, a big difference to the macho killer machines that were everywhere back then. Which is not to say that he's not a badass in his own way, he absolutely is, but he's far more realistic and relatable to the average viewer than some Stallone. Interestingly enough, originally the role of Axel Foley was supposed to be played by Stallone, but due to his extreme changes to the script and his removal of almost all humor, the studio decided to offer the role to Murphy. The ideas that Stallone had for his version of Beverly Hills Cop would later be used in the now iconic and cult classic Cobra. What makes this movie stand out is its perfect balance between action and humor. It knows when to be serious and when to show tragic events without making them feel out of place or ridiculous. The murder of a character comes as a surprise to the viewer. I have to admit that the first time I watched this movie as a kid, I genuinely didn't expect certain things to happen because I was under the impression that this is a funny movie and bad things like that don't happen in funny movies. The intro of Beverly Hills Cop is upbeat and there is a funny chase scene which seems to set a more light-hearted tone, all the while Neutron Dance by the Pointer Sisters plays in the background. This is one of my favorite moments of any movie and it's one of those scenes that are just perfectly shot. And yet, 50 minutes later, you get a mafia-type murder that sets the events of this movie into motion. It's interesting because switching like that between humor, action, and serious drama is extremely hard and requires massive talent. So many movies have tried this and failed miserably. It's a testament to Beverly Hills Cop's well-balanced tone that the movie can pull off, featuring both a scene with a guy sneaking around and shoving bananas into the tailpipe of a car to the tune of wacky synthesizer pop and a life or death shootout. It all works because the story and the characters are grounded and the comedic and dramatic moments always come at the right times. Beverly Hills Cop is also not shy of showing some skin, which, as you can imagine, my teenager brain absolutely loved.
Oh my God.
It was raunchy, dramatic, funny, and packed some action. I love that it heavily influenced one of my favorite genres, the body cop genre. Movies such as Lethal Weapon, The Nice Guys, Rush Hour, all of them are fantastic in blending humor with action without leaning too heavily into one or the other. This movie also has one of the most iconic soundtracks ever made, period. As soon as Axel Foley's theme starts playing, you instantly get hit with a wave of nostalgia and it sets the atmosphere perfectly. And it would be a crime not to mention Glenn Frey and the Pointer Sisters. Watching Beverly Hills Cop just makes you want to dance or headbang anytime you hear one of these amazing tracks. I believe this also had a strong boost in the popularity of the Pointer Sisters, which then also led to their songs being used in the sequel and Miami Vice. It also fits perfectly with the vibe of this movie. It's never too over the top or too dramatic. No matter what type of scene is playing, it fits and harmonizes well with the soundtrack. This movie really is one of the greatest action comedies ever made, at least one of the best from the 80s, and it's amazing to see what kind of impact and influence it had on the genre. The body cop genre is so ingrained in our culture that we sometimes forget it only exists since the 80s.